All right, everyone, welcome to This Week in Tyranny. Thank you for joining me here on this Sunday edition, May 4th, 2025. It's episode 126. We're going to reinvent ourselves in this episode. Going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to be a producer live on air, so we're going to play some clips and I'll go through it kind of the way I used to do it. Actually, maybe something you may not know about This Week in Tyranny is before I even did episode 1, I did like 3 or 4 videos that I never uploaded. They're uploaded private on my channel, where I just played a news clip and I would just pause it. This is before I had the camera. It was just, without my face on it. So I used to do that. I want to show some clips and I'm going to try to cut the post editing out so you just get a live show. It's This Week in Tyranny. I used to call it the most hardcore show on earth. I used to say if tyranny is not at your doorstep, it's because there's someone in the street keeping it at bay. Lately, I'm thinking it's the most unique show, and that's what I can endeavor to be. It's not always the most hardcore show. Last week, I almost lost my marbles because I was having a rough time. We're back, looking to reinvent ourselves, talking about the decorum of leadership. I want to talk about the political leaders, the administrative leaders that we have, not just in this country but in the world, and compare that to the sports leaders. Because the whole point, the whole inspiration for this show is that if men, especially, if people would direct the same kind of energy that they have towards sports, towards those, their favorite teams, their city, their franchise, if they could direct that same kind of attention, that same kind of care, that same kind of respect and decorum to public policy, to politics, to administration, we would live in a completely different world. And that is the subject of this episode, episode 126. I'll start out by just justifying it a bit because I'm against all politics. I'm nonpartisan, right? I'm against government. I believe in individual government, right? That this is what I fight for. This is what I try to teach. But I'm talking about politics every week because it matters. It does matter. Politics does matter. That's kind of a statement I don't make often enough. But here's why it matters. It's not that government has any moral legitimacy in principle. It doesn't have any moral legitimacy in principle. But when we're talking about our life, our everyday life, that it matters. Not politics as in the popular, what people think, but policy affects your life. It's your life. Whether you can get a loan, where you can live, what are the interest rates and all that stuff, what kind of school you can afford to send your child to. Are we going to pretend these are things that don't matter? It matters. Even though I don't vote and will never vote, I'm still going to talk about it because part of it really matters. Now, it doesn't really matter what the political candidates say because there, of course, is a subterranean agenda in play, despite who makes the policy. So, yes, the policy matters, but regardless of what the policy is, the actual things that are going to be implemented in the world are not based on the letter of the law, what is written down in paper, what laws are passed, but really the deals, the influence, the behind the table stuff, the behind the scenes things, the handshakes, the political contributions, the wink wink moments, I'll donate this and this to your kid's charity. That's what really gets stuff done in the world. But the policy does matter. We get pressure from above and below, and that's the true political influence. But the policy itself does matter as well. But what matters for us when I say politics matters, like to the everyday person, and that's why it matters to talk about Donald Trump and talk about Joe Biden, and then talk about these sports coaches that I want to talk about, especially hockey coaches. Because if you haven't known before, I'm a hockey guy and it's the playoffs, baby. So we're going to talk about it. But when politics really matters, where it matters is not in your support for politicians, not in your support for policies, but policy resistance. Resistance to policies and resistance to laws. That is where political activism and political action actually does matter. The more that people resist certain laws, certain programs, and agendas that are being implemented, the better the standard of living, the better the overall culture and society is. And you can comparatively, look through history and see that to be the case. I think the best government that we have in recorded human history was the early American government, the constitutional republic. Really, it's a very, very limited, weak government, and a wide distance apart from any kind of royalty, kingship, or any sort of established authority. It was the early Americas, and this is, of course, what changed the world, and this is what puts a camera and a microphone ahead of me today. It was because of resistance to policy that this nation became a rich nation, an influential nation, and influenced the world. Now, we're living in 2025, and we look at America, and we can say that these same things that maybe liberated humanity, these are the same things enslaving humanity today. That is a different conversation, but I do want to give that respect to the system of government and say the freest that it has ever been. We're talking about no political repression. We're talking about very little taxation. We're talking about an ability to live your life without having to sacrifice for some type of nation, some type of race, some type of agenda. We're talking about separation of church and state. All of these things, free speech, the right to own property. It's because of political resistance that became what it became. The more we went away from political resistance and toward political support, supporting politicians, supporting endeavors and programs, that is when all of those things that we want, all of those fruits of liberty, they've gone away with political action. To sum it up, the quality of life is directly proportional to how politically involved its people are, but not in support, but the resistance to policy, resistance to control. So the way that brings us to my subject and this whole concept of comparing the politicians with the sports coaches is what we tolerate in a politician is very important. Not the guy, not his thoughts or his feelings, but what we actually support, what we can get behind. So I want to start with the first clip, that the ABC interview that just went down with Donald Trump with Terry, I want to say Moran. I didn't get his last name. Not that it matters too much, okay? But no disrespect to Terry, the interviewer. Of course, it was Donald Trump's 100 days in office, 100 days, and he was interviewed. Now, this is not just the whole interview that I'm going to play. It's from Inside Edition, so this is a video with commentary already over it, but I like the way they put it together, so I'm going to talk over it. I'm going to try to get the levels right in real time. I'm producing right in real time, so please excuse me for any technical issues, but we're going to dive right into that one.
It's official. Elon is leaving the White House.
I wear a lot of hats, and as you can see, it's true. Even my hat has a hat.
The world's richest man yucked it up at the president's cabinet meeting today as Trump wished him well.
You're invited to stay as long as you want. At some point, I guess he wants to get back home to his cars and his
At last night's rally in Michigan, Trump invited some of his inner circle on stage.
Does anyone know Margot, beautiful Margot?
Including his social media photographer, Margot Martin, a Melania look-alike.
I'm not allowed to say this. It's the end of my political career, but I'm going to say it anyway. She's the most beautiful photographer in the world. I don't know if she's the best, but she's the most beautiful.
Yeah, sure he's not allowed to say it. Of course, this is extra points for him. This is what people like to see. They think it's so groundbreaking to be outside of the box, to be outside of the lines. Like, oh, he can. It's almost refreshing to hear that you can call a woman beautiful, and it's so controversial. Is it really all that controversial? It isn't, but let's see what he says. This is the part. This is the interview with ABC talking about Abrego Garcia, who was deported to El Salvador with the claim that he is an MS-13 member based on the tattoos on his knuckles.
In this moment from President Trump's ABC interview is raising eyebrows today.
He had MS-13 on his knuckles.
He insists that deported immigrant Kilmar Abrego Garcia has MS-13 tattooed on his knuckles.
Hey, Terry.
He did not have the
do that.
letter MS-13.
It says MS-13.
That was Photoshopped. So let me
That
just...
was Photoshop. Terry, you can't do that.
They're talking about this image Trump posted.
Okay, before we get into the factual accuracy, it just stands out to me how he calls him... he talks to him like a piece of trash. Yeah, Terry, you know, like he big dogs him. It's very condescending, and I'm all for letting somebody have it, especially if they're part of the media. So, you know, it is fake news, but the way he does it, it's just, there's nothing to like about that. Now, this is the photo they're talking about, and the whole beef is that obviously these you see here, these are the tattoos. I don't know, I've seen people with the different symbols tattooed on their fingers. My brother does, so you know, so you've seen that before. Now this, of course, is the interpretation that he's part of the MS-13, the gang, and Trump makes the claim that that's what he actually has, and it's just a goofy moment. It's a factual mistake, and you'll see that
on social media. It's a photo created by the Trump administration to bolster their case that Abrego Garcia is a member of the notorious gang. The faded tattoos on his knuckles show a marijuana plant, smiley face, crucifix, and skull. But MS-13 was pretty obviously photoshopped.
Do you want me to show you the picture?
I saw the picture.
And you think it was Photoshop?
He did have tattoos that can be interpreted that way. I'm not an expert on them.
He had MS, as clear as you can be, not interpreted.
I asked an expert, author Stephen.
This guy, expert on tattoos. But anyway, I have to give a shout out to Ryan Christian, who this is who I saw cover this at first, and you know, to say photoshopped is like even he says, Trump says, did you see the picture? And this is what we live in, the era of meme politics, another Ryan Christian term. It's based on the picture, right, where you can just look at the guy's hand and see what it is. But people are only going to look at memes. People are only going to look at pictures. And this kind of factual inaccuracy is something that an athlete, a hockey player, a hockey coach would never be able to get away with. But we let people get away with it who are making decisions that affect our everyday life.
Dudley.
Are those images that we see on the hands of MS-13 members?
There are some tattoos that signify definite membership. Those would be things like MS-13 on your chest.
A tattoo will never signify membership
MS.
of anything.
But a lot of the
tattoo
other
is just
ones
a
are in this
tattoo.
gray area. There's a lot of people with marijuana tattoos, with cross tattoos.
How does a cross mean a 1? How does a skull mean a 3? I mean, it's kind of... you can clearly look at that and say... Anyway, the guy doesn't look like a savage to me. You know, this is a gang member. I mean, he's getting all cuddly with his girl in the picture. I mean, come on, give me a break.
Tattoos.
I'm more MS-13 than that guy.
So, does that indicate gang membership? No, not necessarily.
No endorsement of Inside Edition. But anyway, hope that went well. Just wanted you guys to see that. Especially wanted to focus on how he talks to the journalist. And I saw the actual video on YouTube, and I scrolled down and looked at the comments, and I saw the one side saying, I saw the comment saying, wow, he's senile, he's worse than Joe Biden. It's hard to believe that this is America, you know. This is kind of what I expected, just pointing out not only the lack of decorum, kind of the juvenile high school insult nature of it all. It sounds like a lunch cafeteria rap battle more than a real interview of a leader of the country. That's kind of what I expected. But I also saw another video that the title of it is Trump bitch slapped. ABC, you know, and another person just like me covering this and playing the interview, but actually saying that he embarrassed him like that, that really praising Donald Trump for being such a maverick and such a guy who's going to call people out and put them on the spot and really deal with the media, you know, dunk on them. And that was Patrick Bet David, the channel Valuetainment, and the other guys that he has there talking on the panel with him. It's a 4-person panel. They said, yeah, this is what we voted for. That he, you know, he doesn't pull any punches. He says it how it is. Yes, this is what people like to see, because it's different than what we have had in this country for a long, long time, which is just the very corporate language, very unemotional, very uninterested, lies being told with a straight face. Now here we've got lies being told too, but at least it's in a direct way. It's in a way that is refreshing, especially for older men. Now, I want to jump from this straight to John Cooper, who is the hockey coach of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, they just had a series with the defending champion Florida Panthers, so it's a Tampa against Florida. It's a big rivalry, and this is just after losing Game 4. Now, of course, I saw this all happening because my team is the Florida Panthers, so this was the opposing team's coach, and right after this game was crazy. He was extremely emotional during this game. He saw his player get elbowed and concussed and the elbow was in itself a revenge hit for another dirty hit that they made. It's hockey, baby, right? So I just give you that background to let you know that he's in a very vulnerable place here. This is a guy that's known for being very even-keeled, but he got emotional during the game because right after that hit knocks out his player, concusses him out of the series. His team, they were losing 1-0 and they scored twice on us, 2 goals in 11 seconds, and then you just see him at the bench just pumping his fist, you know, like that's right. That's how you respond, because there was no penalty or anything, right? So there's a roller coaster of emotions. And then with 3 minutes left, Florida, my team, scored 2 goals in 11 seconds again, like on their head. So they traded these 2-goal outbursts in 11 seconds in a 60-minute game, and Florida wins 3-2, and then Tampa Bay goes down 3-1 in the series. After experiencing that, he has to go and have an interview right after that, okay? So I hope you see that one-to-one comparison under pressure, and see the composure and how he expresses emotion. Now you tell me if it's in a way that is comparable to Trump, or if it's a more respectable and decorated way to respond there. Here we go. Gonna produce live.
John, you guys have obviously been
Let's
so
go.
good at
Who needs a
holding
producer?
Third period leads. What do you think happened tonight?
What do you mean? What happened?
What you guys have a lead going into 4 minutes left. I mean, what do you think happened to you guys defensively?
Well, it was an icing, and we had chances to get it out, and we didn't. And that was it. I don't know what else to say. And then the next one's a little bit of a fluky one. So, you know, both teams in the game had 2 spurts of 11 seconds that were really rewarding. Unfortunately, you know, theirs came at the end with not a whole lot of time left.
Coop, what'd you think of the hit on Hagel there, and any surprise, at least how the team responded after the hit, getting 2 goals quickly there?
Yeah, it's getting tiresome answering questions about a hit every single game. So I'll ask you. You asked me the question. Why are you asking me the question? Do you have anything to say about it?
Nobody cares about it.
Oh, well, but, you know, if anybody in here has something, stand up and let me know. All right, let's move on.
this is a contentious interaction because they're asking him about a hit. If he comments and says, yeah, that was a dirty hit, not only does he put a target on his players' backs, he will get fined for criticizing officiating, all of these things, not to mention that, he's the coach. So his players have to answer for what he says. So what's he supposed to say? Like, the guy elbowed my guy right in the face and the league sucks? This is another contentious exchange. But he's not personally attacking that journalist or that sports media guy. He's asking him to make a statement if he wants to make a statement. He's not talking over him. It's a real conversation. He gives him the opportunity to speak. And this is a guy who's, a guy like Trump, he's preparing for that interview. It's a prepared set type of interaction. And this guy, his mind is on coaching the game. This is an afterthought. Not only is he extremely emotional and tired, right, feeling all sorts of things, this is not, he's not a talker by expertise, not in the sense of talking to media. Now, the president is an expert in communicating with, is supposed to be an expert in communicating with actual people about what he does. So this is just to let you know that one guy gets paid to do one thing exactly, and he does it in a way that's not very respectable and juvenile. And this guy, he gets paid to coach and win games. He does that, and then still does the media 1,000 times better.
Is this series about as close as you thought it'd be, aside from game one? It seems like all the rest of the games could turn on a dime, and with that Ekblad rebound, it did tonight.
Yeah. You know what? It was tough losing the first two at home. So we have massive challenges ahead of us. And for 115 minutes, we passed every test possible. And we just had a tough, tough 11 seconds there at the end of the game. And it's unfortunate. We played well enough to win both games. And, we came up, a little short on this. To answer your question, is the series close? It's really close. And that's what makes this, Battle of Florida, so much fun, because it's two extremely competitive teams that play a great brand of hockey, and it's fun to watch. And that's why you get these tight, exciting games.
Yes. Sorry, I apologize for the feedback going through the mic. I realized halfway through it that I need to mute my mic while I'm playing the clips. Hey, we're learning on the job here. So that was John Cooper, okay? Even when they scored on us those two goals in 11 seconds, and I saw him, like, pumping his fist on the sideline, I couldn't help but smile for him. Like, so much respect for that guy, and he has respect for the game. You could see that for the opponents. Even having the perspective in that moment to zoom out and appreciate the moment. Is that too much to ask for, to have our politicians act like this? This is my problem here. Now, I'll go from this straight to Paul Maurice, the Florida Panthers coach. And not from this game, but after the next game, which is game 5. So that basically after winning the series. So this is the game after this. It's a similar type of, I'm showing a similar guy saying similar things, but in a different context. I hope you're enjoying it, because I certainly do enjoy these guys.
Actually did more today
We're gonna skip
than
forward.
had he practiced with us. The key is that you're not shutting anybody down. So he ended up with 57 goals. Kucherov's
Bear with me.
So they're getting theirs. They always have, always will. But how much you feed them on top of that is probably the deciding factor.
There's the Hagel hit and the Ekblad hit, and we hate them and they hate us and all that stuff in round 1, and then there's the handshake at the end of every series.
And it's real.
And how much over 30 years, you've been through a lot of them, I'm sure there some you've enjoyed more than.
Okay, in case you guys didn't get that context, they're talking about the handshakes, which are customary for after every playoff series, no matter how much these guys kill each other, they shake hands. One of the most beautiful traditions in sports.
Others, obviously, but we just don't talk enough about that moment. Why is that so important to the sport?
Because it was true in that line with Tampa. That was a nasty series. It was exactly like the second Boston series. It went from being heavy to being nasty. And it really wasn't even, I mean, I understand why those hits are points. It's actually all the other stuff. Like that game too, there could have been 30 penalties called. It was behind the scenes ugly. And then here's a little bit of my complaint. I don't think the coaches should shake hands with the players. When this whole thing started, I don't know where it changed, probably in the last 10 years, but the coaches would come off the bench, shake hands, and then they'd leave. I don't know, somewhere some coach wanted to get on camera. The way he got down there and got in the line. Now, if you don't, you get roasted for it. You're being disrespectful, so you got to go out and shake a bunch of sweaty dudes' hands. But you wear a suit to the game. But those guys, I mean, the battle is real. Like the intensity of it, the meanness. And you got two guys crossing paths that have been trying to do harm to each other for somewhere between 4 and 7 games. And the handshake's legitimate and it's real. And that's a part of the great story of our game, that they can do that. And just in the quality of the comments from the Tampa Bay Lightning players, really, I thought there was, especially their leaders, a great amount of integrity in that. And almost a lesson for me. Like that was pretty good, really good. I'm really impressed by the things that they said in that line.
So you'd rather just go shake coats again?
That's the way it should be. The coaches, we wear suits. That's why you'll never hear me say, "Yeah, we're going to get that guy." I'm wearing a suit. I'm not. There's nothing that I'm going to say that I will ever have to answer for from a player, right? So. The coaches just, but I'm not going to change that now because it would be viewed as completely disrespectful if you didn't do it. So stay with your own kind. All the suits, right? The guys in track suits, they can do their thing. The guys in suits, and then the players that's special to me. That should be just the players.
Do you enjoy it though? I mean, now that you have to do it?
No, for that reason.
So let me just jump in here. The connection I'm drawing here is, this guy, imagine him like the president, right? And he's talking about the players. Now, the players would be like the everyday citizens, the taxpayers. So these are the guys who actually do the work. And he's coming at it from a position of, it feels awkward. It feels wrong for him to be part of those exchanges of respect between each other. He's actually saying it like he sees the players as above him. Now you contrast that with the leaders. They act like we're their slaves and we're just their pawns, right? Where's that respect for the everyday, the everyday person that you're supposed to be managing, that you're supposed to be, in a leadership position over? It's day and night, absolutely day and night. And you could see, do you ever hear the words like integrity and respect in this sense? And when do you ever hear, political opponents talking about their political opponents like that? Like actually respecting their humanity. We've completely lost this. It almost seems like a whole nother world. You almost don't even think about this comparison, although that's a very strong one-to-one comparison. The politicians and the sports coaches, the leaders and the leaders of athletes. Let's continue.
It's like one player in the line could easily say to me, "What are you doing here?" And I would say, "You're right. I have no business being here, but I have to." It should be that's how I feel about it.
We've seen no coaches have moments with players, though, right?
That part's right? That's real. And maybe
Okay, we'll stop it there. Spectacular. It's spectacular. The standards for athletes and coaches is so high. These guys perform at their highest in their craft, in their field, and then they have to go completely out of their element right then and there, and answer like really incisive and repetitive questions. So they get asked the same things, but they're not easy things, right? And they don't have a PR campaign. They don't have people defending them, unlike Donald Trump and the mainstream his mainstream and counter mainstream supporters. When you talk about these talk show hosts and people who, like Tucker Carlson, like he's counter mainstream. This is a guy that used to be on TV and now he's not on TV. Now he's on YouTube, but it's still mainstream. It's counter mainstream is what I call it. But these sports stars and coaches, they get the highest level of scrutiny from their own fans, right? Nobody's going to criticize their own people as much as sports fans will do. And in politics, it's the complete opposite. In politics, you get the softball questions. You get the support. No matter what they do, they can do no wrong. It's completely upside down. If we applied the same level of scrutiny to politics as we do to sports, then we would have the best government in human history. Like if a big market team doesn't make the playoffs in 4 years, the people are going to say, we need wholesale changes. We don't tolerate mediocrity here. This is a storied franchise. We cannot live with incompetence. We like the guy, but if he doesn't get results, then he's not fit for the team. Get rid of him. Do we do that with our president? Do we do that with our presidents? Well, what would be the political equivalent of not making the playoffs? Like, what would that be like? Oh, I don't know. Budget deficit increasing, inflation, costs, prices going up, journalists being censored, travel and public gatherings being more limited. Like, I would say that's a lack of performance, right? That is, we could say, lack of results. And when you put it that way, we haven't made the playoffs in 100 years. And that goes not for just the United States. I don't think life is getting better in any country in the world, even Israel, even a place like United Arab Emirates, even like Abu Dhabi. Yeah, they got a lot of money, but I would venture to say that life is declining over there as well. I think we could say for sure the past 100 years we've been descending. So not making the playoffs for 100 years, that makes us worse than the New York Jets. Like, we're way worse than the Buffalo Sabres. And people will boo and chant at the games. They would boycott the games. They would do all these things. But when it comes to people who are actually signing documents and making proclamations that directly alter the course of our lives, the course of the lives of our children, then they play softball with them. Right? The 21-year-old star player, that he gets thrust out there to lose the biggest game of his life, put in a position where he has to lead a franchise against 10-year veterans dealing with injuries and the injustices of referee decisions, and that moment happens to him, and in that moment he gets put right in front of the bright lights and a microphone with 30 reporters, and he has to face the music and he has to say, no excuses. We lost. No excuses. I have to do better. And meanwhile, our leaders make all the excuses. The presidents make all the fucking excuses. Now, in that Trump interview, the interviewer was challenging him, as it should be, as it is in sports. But not only did he do it in a passive-aggressive way, he didn't actually pin the president down to expose the factual inconsistencies. You saw him saying, oh, it was Photoshop, but I want to move on. I don't know if you saw that in the clip I played, but if you watch the interview, he says, oh, that was Photoshop, but you can agree to disagree. Like, I just want to move on to Ukraine, is what he said. So he's actually avoiding that embarrassing moment. If it was an athlete, he would have gotten grilled for that. That's like somebody disputing what the score of the game was, or like who coached the team last year. It's that level of, there's no way you would get away with that. You would have it pointed out to you. So that's my problem there. The politicians, the executives, they do get hostile questions. They do get challenged. But they get challenged in a very indirect, passive-aggressive way. It's a way of questioning that leads to an emotional answer and emotional responses from both the supporters and the detractors. But it doesn't lead to actual resolution. And there's a reason for why that is the way it is. Because the dynamic between media and political leaders is kayfabe. Kayfabe is the word. It's a wrestling word that refers to keeping up the facade that the good guys and the bad guys in professional wrestling are actually against each other. It's manufactured friction. It's controlled opposition that delivers a contentious outcome. Yeah, it looks like they're butting heads. It has the appearance of conflict, but not in any true way. not in any fundamental way, just a back and forth. And that's what it's all about. It's just about the back and forth. It's just to get the people to buy the tickets and watch these guys do what they do in the ring. And that's why they do that to the politicians. The athletes, they get true opposition. See, people treat their favorite sport like that's their life. And they treat the decisions that are affecting their life like a game. It's an inversion. The athletes, they get the same treatment that I get from a property owner when something goes wrong in construction. The homeowner is going to say, why didn't you do what you said you were going to do? Period. No personal attacks, nothing passive aggressive, just ice cold facts. He's going to say, I'm paying you guys this much. This is the agreement. This is the contract. Why didn't you do what you were going to do? That's what it looks like when the person questioning you is really questioning you, really trying to arrive at answers. You arrive at true answers very quickly that way when someone's inquiring about key points, not putting on a show for the cameras, and then behind the scenes shaking hands with you. So the politicians, they have a few of these contentious exchanges, but really not that many of them. And the rest of the time, they do rallies. They just talk to their supporters. They do prepared statements, or they talk to supporters, or they, the State of the Union address is like you get a round of applause after every 2 sentences, and it's embarrassing. These speeches, they're really just pep talks, right? So again, we're going back to the sports coaches. Look at the locker room speeches. Even when the coaches in sports, they absolutely have to give an inspiring speech, a pep talk. The top level coaches, they never sound ridiculous. They never sound like our president does. They have an awareness to not go outside of themselves, because they are fully aware that they are not the ones that have to go out there. They know that when they make this decision, they say these words, it's their players that have to go and answer for it. So this is not like a general, so-called, right, or a commander-in-chief saying, okay, we're going to go to war, and then he sits in comfort and the guys go to war. Now, that happens with war and the military. It happens with our political leaders. It doesn't happen with the coaches, because they live in the real world. The president and senator and advisor is not the one who's going to have to go out there, and he's not going to be able to put food on his family's table if they get hurt. Right? They're not the ones who are going to have to go through foreclosure and bankruptcy, right? So the coaches, they don't sound ridiculous because they're aware of where they are. But in popular culture, in politics, everyone sounds ridiculous now. And we're talking in America, which is the trendsetter for the world culture and society. Not saying it's the only place that matters. I'm not saying it's the best place, but objectively, America is the trendsetter. And here in this country, we've had 2 presidents since the social media era, and they've both sounded ridiculous. I'm going to talk about the social media era now. We're talking about when social media started becoming a thing, where communication became instant, where the internet became completely inseparable from everyday life. Smartphones, taking pictures of your food, all of that stuff. That's the social media era. Likes, there was a time before likes. And I put 2011 as the start of the social media era. Look at the timelines of smartphones. The first iPhone came out in 2007, but it wasn't until like 2010 that smartphones became a standard. You could say it's between 2009 and 2012. That's the time where the internet transitioned from being very open and uncontrolled, a time where you had the classic phone, no touch screen. Social networking was AOL and Tumblr. This was the time where that dies off and the internet goes to an internet that is very universal. Everyone is on there, and thus it's more controlled. Then you got the smartphone, the touch screen. Facebook and Instagram are the social networking websites now. Apps and basically visual, high engagement devices. That's the change. And this is what destroyed humanity more than anything. More than any kind of war, more than any kind of policy, more than any conspiracies. That destroyed humanity more than anything. Not that technology is evil, but because of the social media era at this time, this is when people fell out of touch with reality. And now the presidents act the way they do. The last president that was different, that spoke differently, that acted differently. The last president of the pre-social media era was Barack Obama. Do I like him? No, I never have. I remember in grade school, we talked about who we would vote for. This was 2008. And one teacher actually did this, and everybody spoke about it. And I was the only kid in the class who said John McCain. I was like I was 11 or 12 years old, you know. I still wasn't. My English wasn't even that sharp. I don't know what grade this was. But, 2008. I was born 96, so I was 12. But something told me at the time that I didn't want to go along with this thing that everybody else was going along with. That's the only reason I said that. But the thing about Obama was he spoke in a way that was very respectable. And the women fell for it, and they got taken on a ride. It was the women. It was specifically a gender divide operation. Not just the Obama presidency, but everything that followed, including the social media era. The smartphone social media thing, this completely blew up the family. Separated not only men from women, but parents from children. And it's pretty simple how it happens, starting with the gender divide. The smartphones come out, everything gets visual. All the hot girls post their pictures and their videos, and they're on the internet, they're easily accessible. All the guys, they get bombarded with all that stuff, and they like what they see. Everyone starts taking pictures of their food, right? But somebody else's picture, somebody else's video, somebody else's post is always going to look better than yours. That's the way that works, visual comparative thinking. So what ends up happening is no one is happy with the person next to them. Girls don't feel confident about themselves anymore because they're thinking about the girl that put the better picture up, put the better video up. Everybody is looking at how many friends they have, what kind of engagement they have. All of this engagement is in a virtual world. It's in the internet. It's not in real life. So what you get is people are no longer paying attention and appreciating what is in front of them. That's what happened. Now, meanwhile, when we're talking about the presidency, Barack Obama comes along as a candidate after 8 years of George Bush Jr., right? So, big change. Obama's tall, he's young, he speaks well, and the elephant in the room, I don't know if you noticed, he's black. Now, when a black man is exceptional, they're really exceptional. I think you can objectively say that is the case, right? I think about the hip-hop culture in general, the people that I consider like my role models and teachers around this time before even. These are mostly black men. Now, I'm not talking about the whole population. As far as the general population of everybody who's so-called black, dark-skinned people in America, I think you always have a bell curve with any population. There's good and bad and all ethnicities and races and cultures and unique dynamics there. But I'm talking just very simply, when you get a star, when you get an exceptional man, the black man stands out in many ways. And for all those reasons, yes, it was a woman thing, the Obama presidency. It was, okay? And I have proof for this. I bet you didn't thought I was going to come with receipts. Women in elections lean Democrat in general, right? That's nothing new. Women tend to vote Democratic. Now, I couldn't find the gender and age gap breakdown for the 2008 election, which is the one I'm talking about, that I would argue was the standout one. But I found data on the 2012 re-election against Mitt Romney. So after 4 years of being president, his support would be, of course, lesser, because politicians, as they get older, as they spend more time in office, they get less popular, of course, because it's one directional, the deterioration in the political world. But I'm going to link this article here. It's pewresearch.org. The gender gap, 3 decades old, as wide as ever. Okay. Now, they did a survey. In the March survey, we're talking 2012, Obama led Romney by 31 points among women younger than 50. That's 64% to 33%. It had a sizable advantage among women 50 to 64, 58 to 36%. Okay, so older women, not as big of a distance, but still there. But when it comes to women 65 or older, Romney ran about even with Obama. So 48% to Obama, 49% to Romney. So you see that there's an age difference here and a gender difference. So the young women, the women of marriage age and childbearing age, there's a huge support for Barack. Now, something to take into account is, married couples usually vote together. So when you're saying that 64 to 33%, the 33% for Romney, I would say, remember, a lot of this is they're going to vote because their husband is going to vote for them, or they have similar values. You look at, I'm from Chicago. The whole world is not Chicago. There are plenty of small towns. There are plenty of people that are conservatives and Republicans, but still, despite that, you still had 64 to 33%. So think about that. It's a huge difference. And this is in 2012. I think in 2008, Obama versus John McCain among young women, I think it was completely, there's no comparison there. Now, after the Obama presidency, then we had Trump. And that, with the context of what happened with the social media era, nothing was ever the same between men and women in America. The end of story. Think about it. Think about going from that to that. And I'm not saying once you go black, you never go back. I think that's a thing that a white man came up with. I think it's an insecurity thing. I think it actually reflects the disconnect between the things that men think are important are not the same things that women think are important. But regardless, anyway, it's just such a steep drop in the decorum, the presence of a man, okay? The feeling you get when you listen to him. I'm not talking about his policy, not talking about his actions, because Trump still hasn't caught up to Barack Obama when it comes to deportations or even military action, right? The Obama. But I'm talking about how they speak and present. I think that's pretty clear. And since the social media era, people don't speak as well, people don't present as well, men especially. And the presidents of this country reflect that we've had since then. We had Trump 4 years, then we had Joe Biden 4 years, now we have Donald Trump again. 2 old clownish men, both over life expectancy when they became president. Meaning, on average, that's when men die, they're doing the job. They're doing like the most important job in the country, right? When the life expectancy is like 74. And Joe Biden and Donald Trump were 77 and 78 when they became president. Now these coaches, John Cooper is 57, Paul Maurice is 58. To me, that age makes sense to be a leader. I think peak physical performance is going to be somewhere around 25 to 30. Mentally, you have to catch up to have all cylinders firing. I would say when it comes to decision making, around 40 years old, to have the intelligence, the experience, but also the energy to make big picture decisions as a leader. And then in the elite fields, I would say you have to add like 10 to 15 years in an ultra competitive and difficult special field like the NHL, like hockey. So you're looking at around 55 years old to become the best 2 coaches in hockey, which is what they are. That's an age where you're old enough to have seen it all and recognize patterns that others won't see. So you've got the advantage there, but still young enough to relate to the players, the up-and-coming guys. Okay? Our political leaders are not that. They don't relate to us. They don't relate to you. They're out of touch with their pep talks, right? And I don't care what anybody says about Donald Trump. This talk, the way he talks, it inspires nobody. Now, I know so many people that voted, fell for it. and they're out of touch too. See, if they're inspired, it's because they're as out of touch, and I'm not trying to like destroy them for it. It doesn't take much to get taken for a ride and fall out of touch reality. I fell out of touch with reality for years. Like a good part of my life, I fell out of touch with it. Doing just things that were never going to last, things that made no sense, things that were destructive to me, right? And this kind of living wild and living through addictions and chasing, short-lived experiences, living in a little bubble, not really developing myself, not really helping my family, being basically a nightmare to be around for anybody that cared about me, being good to people who had nothing to do with me, being pleasant to people who are not really out for my well-being, but to the people who are out for my well-being, they're the ones who got it the worst. So I fell out of touch with reality too. Now, we're talking about like the people we know, family. We're not talking about Patrick Bet David or any of these internet hosts and influencers. I say fuck them. Okay? Patrick Bet David, come get some. I don't usually call people out. Come get some. And that goes for anybody who disagrees with what I'm saying. I don't think I say it often enough. Like, there's an open invitation to debate, live or pre-recorded, about the things I say. Because just like Paul Maurice and John Cooper, I know who I am, and what I'm saying, I have a basis for it. So I don't need a prepared statement. I don't need to have the certain lights or a certain microphone on me. Anytime, anywhere, we can talk. So I'm not talking about these guys that are having 100,000 views and everybody's watching their analysis, what they're saying. I'm talking about our families is who matters. Our children, our loved ones. They've gotten out of touch. They've gone out of touch with reality. And you should share this show with them to get them more in touch. It is promotion. Frankly, I don't think This Week in Tyranny gets the respect it deserves as far as the content presented. But it's not because, I'm not saying it's because people don't like me. I'm not saying that the world is unfair to me, or that YouTube doesn't promote a channel that's not monetized and repeatedly touches shadow ban topics and routinely gets strikes, and I haven't uploaded an ID photo, and I haven't done the facial recognition thing that YouTube does, and I'm not gonna say it's that I haven't gotten enough exposure from this app. The reason this show doesn't get the respect it deserves, honestly, is because people just don't know what they're looking at, and that's the truth. They don't know what to look for. But I don't want excuses. I'm telling you how it is. As of now, I can't put myself up there with Ryan Christian's daily wrap-up, okay, on his website, The Last American Vagabond. That's the gold standard, I would say, for objective truth, alternative journalism. Yeah, I would say that's the champion right there, who I want to thank personally for his work. He's been a source several times, and I actually saw the Donald Trump I mentioned, that interview I saw on his show. So for now, I can't put my work up there with Max Egan, Richard Grove, Larkin Rose, because the effect and the results just are not there yet. But they will be. They will be. That's what I'm out for. Paul Maurice, the coach of the Florida Panthers, he has the record for most losses by a coach in NHL history. No one's lost more than him. He got his first NHL head coaching job in 1995, 3 months before I was born. And since then, he's been fired several times. He's coached several teams. Now, last summer, he won the Stanley Cup. It took 30 years for him to get there, 30 years before he won. And now he's clearly recognized as the best coach in the league. And that's the path that I'm willing to travel to get to my goal of being the best show on the internet. That's what a leader is supposed to say and sound like. Because the same things that it takes to win a Stanley Cup, to win a championship in hockey, those are the same kind of things that it takes to achieve a state of freedom in the world. Dedication, persistence, it's going to take sacrifice, blood, sweat, and tears. It's going to take pushing yourself harder than you thought was possible, really seeing the long-term vision when everything is going against you, to end the wars, to end the child abuse, to end the injustice everywhere. They're the same kind of things that it takes for this elite group of guys to lift that trophy. But the politicians don't tell you that, do they? They don't. They tell you to take on the hardship that's coming, but they'll never explain to you simply what the plan is. They'll never give you the blueprint. They'll never tell you what your role actually is in the plan, because success is never the plan for these politicians. They know you're not going to win the Stanley Cup, and they don't really want you to try. They just want to stick around and make excuses for not winning it. So my question is, why are you still listening to them? Why do we still listen to these people, now that I've shown the difference? But to put a cherry on top of that, I'll let Paul Maurice tell you. And I'll end it with that. But before I end the show, I want to say Rhythms of Discord is my next album. I wrote a couple songs, I think it was last October, or maybe even 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago. So I'm releasing an album in preparation for the Soundpath Music Festival. We just did another Soundpath music listening session. I'll link that as well. Soundpath.org is the website. We're going to have many musicians, presenters, and it's going to be really the first of its kind, the first Freedom Natural Law Music Festival. First of its kind, and it's going to be the first of many. So before I let Paul Maurice finish it off, I want to say thank you very much, and I'll see you next week on This Week in Tyranny. But first, I'm going to have to find it. Actually, we're going to skip a bit, alright? We're going to skip a bit. Unless you want more hockey talk, then let me know. We could do something. Hold on. I got more to say. Yeah. So this is the idea that he's part of this. You get to share it. So he knows that he wasn't out there with those guys, but thanks to them, they were able to have this moment, and it's really for all their families, for all of the people that grew up watching it and loving the sport. They get to have this moment of joy. And what a respect that is for the people that you're the leader of. That gratitude. That is why I played this to finish off this show as a final clip. Now from this, he's going to go to talk about the longest tenured player, Aaron Ekblad. By the way, he's the guy that elbowed that Tampa Bay player. He actually got suspended for 2 games for that one. But it just... I'll be honest, I celebrated that hit because it was standing up for your guys. Now, the point is, I want you to see, he's going to talk about one person specifically. Look at how much love and respect there is for that person. And you will never, ever, ever, ever see a politician think about an everyday person this way, about one of their people, one of their constituents. Actually thinking about them, actually being engaged and emotionally invested in their life. You could see this is family. This is what a leader is supposed to be like.